Okay, Robin, where are we?
We are at Ike's Canyon Ranch in the High Plains Desert of central Nevada, and we're here to record a little video for Boulder Bookstore, the wonderful Boulder Bookstore, about my novel, Pity the Beast.
Well, can you give me a synopsis of Pity of the Beast? What's it about?
Well, when I was writing it here in the middle of the desert, I called it a Western, and the press is calling it a feminist Western because there's some really strong women characters in it, and they're also calling it an eco-feminist Western because the landscapes and beings that have been in other Westerns are front and center in this Western as opposed to background as they were in other Westerns. The general storyline is pretty straightforward. There's a dispute in a community. There's a husband and wife named Ginny and Dan who are having marital troubles, and there's also some horse troubles. There's a mare who's having a troubled labor, and a bunch of neighbors come over to try to help, and things go from bad to worse. Ginny is left for dead, and she is not dead, and she heads out into the mountains, and there's a chase, a search, a hunt, depending on who you are in the story, and the characters interact with between themselves and with the landscape that they're in, and it proceeds on to the end.
So, what was your inspiration for writing this story?
So I'm a short fiction writer, or used to be only a short fiction writer, and when I write short fiction, what I do is I combine two stories that sort of arise in my mind and don't seem necessarily related to each other. But there was a friend of mine in Alaska who's kind of a very can-do kind of guy, was telling me about this horse at the farm next door that had been impregnated by a really, really big Percheron horse from the farm nearby, and she was having a lot of trouble with labor, and all the neighbors came and tried to help, and they did these crazy Herculean efforts to save her, including my friend driving over his backhoe and trying to lift this mare off the ground to save her. And I was very, very fascinated with the effort that this community went to help this horse, and I combined it with a story of regular old human infidelity that I had witnessed, where a woman was basically sort of run out of town, and I combined them, and the story that came up between them is my novel, Pity the Beast.
Well, why did you decide to have your story jump around in space and time?
Well, I wanted the story to be bigger than just the main narrative of these people riding around on horses in the mountains. I wanted the story to sort of match my interests, which my interests are having to do with planet Earth and the stuff that's happening on planet Earth right now. So I'm also interested in how a writer or artist articulates her interests kind of technically. So a lot of the book is me trying to find ways to articulate the things that I'm most interested in as a human.
Well, Robin, you have written 2 books of short stories. How different was it to write a novel?
It was really, really different, and I wasn't even sure that I could write a novel, because when you're writing short fiction, you're always trying to make things smaller and more compressed, and you're trying to take out any little thing that might seem irrelevant or off the main line of the story. And so for me, for a long time, it was a big struggle to write long. And it took me quite a while to get used to it, but then I did get used to it, and now I see the benefits of a long form as a writer.
Well, what is your writing process like?
Well, I'm pretty willing to be unsure of what I'm doing, and I'm pretty willing to make mistakes, and I think that that's something that's really central to my writing, is that I try to allow my writing to operate on sort of an unconscious level for as long as possible, sort of almost keep blinders up to the larger problems, and one at a time sort of work through the problems until you arise at the end. But I I try to be as tolerant of failure and mistakes and look for clues about what I'm really doing through those mistakes or errors or things that I'm not expecting or things that my conscious adult mind rejects. But that's how I try to write.
All right. Well, it's pretty obvious that you were very busy writing during COVID, but what were you reading during COVID? What are some of the books that held your attention?
Well, because I was writing a Western, I was reading a lot of Westerns because there's the traditional Westerns out there that have motivated me for a long time. The first Western I ever read was The Virginian, and then sometime in the last 20 years, I read True Grit. I know that should have happened sooner, but in the last during COVID, I've been reading a lot of. I read the Anna North book, Outlawed, which I think just won some prize of best cover of the year. I've been reading John Larison, Whiskey When We're Dry, which I totally loved. It's a revisionist Western. There's a young woman as the narrator, who I think everybody should read that book. I've also been reading Ken Jones, The Dig. Still Aside, he's the Faulkner of now, and if you don't know Ken Jones, you should check him out. I've been reading Olga Kotarja. Oh my God, I just messed this up so bad.
No.
Olga Tokarczuk, driving your plow over the bones of the dead. Flights. She blows my mind. She's won the Nobel Prize. People should check her out too. And I've been reading. I read Jim Shepard, Karen Shepard, Kiss Me Someone by Karen Shepard is a book about women's relationships. And I'm trying to think. I read a lot during COVID, as a lot of people did.
Well, is there anything else you'd like us to know about your book?
I don't know about that. I think that it's a book that you have to read very slowly. If you're someone that likes to skim, don't even bother reading Pity the Beast. If you're somebody who likes to read slowly and carefully for the lines, it's kind of a sneaky book and you have to read it slow.
Well, can you read us a passage from your book?
Sure. I have it right here. Pity the Beast and Other Stories. I'm just going to read a little bit from... There's 3 very powerful women in this book. One is Ginny, one is her sister Ella, and one is Granny. And Granny is physically not present in the book, but she advises her granddaughters and other people too. She's a very, very powerful force. And Ginny, who spends most of her time in the novel by herself in the middle of the wilderness, she calls on her grandmother sometimes for advice about how to proceed by herself in the wilderness. And so this is a little bit from Granny. Granny had told her dear ones, "To miss the buck warned the whole herd. That's bad enough. The marksman gets no second shot. The herd will run. They know the mountains well, and the marksman will walk in endless overlapping tracks, and his hunger will grow. To miss the bear is another thing. The bear won't take it well. He may run, and he may not run. If he's injured, he may escape to his cave and lick his wounds, or he may follow the marksman. For a bear, boot tracks are big and clumsy, easy as pie. For a bear, the marksman reeks to high heaven. He doesn't follow the marksman for tit for tat, my little sluts. He follows out of practicality. If he has an enemy, he must subdue his enemy if he's able. In short, you get one good shot. Make it sing. No time for nerves, self-doubt, or sympathy for the beast. The marksman must know his target well, his habits, fears, and predilections." That's it. That's a little from Granny.
Thank you very much. That was very good, and you obviously live in a very pretty place.
Thank you. I hope you guys saw my dog or cat running around in the background. I don't know if you did. Thank you to Boulder Books. Love to see you sometime. We're just a little bit over to the west. Bye.